Hello and welcome, gang. I am Brigantia, Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. This with me is Georgia Liberty of the Wiccan Conservative. If we're very, very lucky, we might also get an appearance of a Puritan View, aka Amanda. We had a very last minute shift in topic. I only got to mention to both of them today, so we'll just gonna be playing things by ear. We had a very different subject in mind. However, this morning, I was watching podcast of the Lotus Eaters, happy as a clam, drinking my tea, hearing the news, and their first subject was about babies grown in pods. Because apparently, if we're not already doing that, we will be doing that very shortly. And yeah, so I lost my mind and went ballistic. I sent Georgia a message. I sent Amanda a message, and here we are, gang. For better or worse, I will draw your attention to the pinned comment in the live stream live chat. I mean every word. Not intended for children. This discussion. Parents, exercise your best judgment. I don't want to hear any whining or bitching after the fact. You were given fair warning. There will absolutely be more swearing than usual because this is just maddening. So I guess we better dive into it, Georgia. The EctoLife, the designer babies, and just no. I could do this. I could just do a whole live stream of no. What about you?
No, 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 and no again. How about that, Scott? That's how I feel about that because this whole Bananarama's BS. Let me turn that down. I just want to get into the chat here so that we don't miss anything. But
Okay.
these people are off of their freaking rocker, and I have
Yeah.
a sneaking suspicion. I know why this is now becoming such a bright and shiny new topic, even though, spoiler alert, this has been going on for a very, very long time. Only it's
Hmm.
something that the rich and famous partook in and they paid a pretty penny for. So I know that you have gone deep dive into the very, very extensive processes that they're going through right now. But let's get into the actual process here. I think is
Yeah.
where we start, right? So tell the
Oh, it's
people what we
it's
found out.
it's grotesque. We're gonna have to tackle this a second at a time because even if I did a summary, it's too much.
Hmm.
After the Lotus Eaters, went onto YouTube. I found EctoLife's a little, I guess, their promotion for what they're doing, and it came from the channel of the Franken Doctor, who has been actively conceptualizing and developing this. So they're describing this as the world's first artificial womb facility.
It's a whole facility. Now,
Yeah.
again, there's been artificial womb technology in use for a long time. Wasn't Michael Jackson's son Blanket actually rumored to have been a in vitro artificially bred womb baby? Am I remembering that correctly?
It's not ringing a bell, which is not to say that your memory isn't on track. I just don't remember, which, for those who aren't aware, we don't trust my memory. There's a reason why I always take notes. No, but I mean that could very well be. But you know what the first announcement about this was before they talked about anything about helping infertile couples or any of that. Their first announcement is this is powered entirely by renewable energy. That's how we started. So, we're virtue signaling about the climate. Before we can talk about having the babies, we've got to make sure that we're not upsetting Gaia. Yeah.
But renewable genetic material doesn't make anybody the slightest bit uncomfortable but me.
Oh, that's how that,
Renewable
that that's how
gener
they're powering the facility.
Oh, that's
That
how the
with
power
wind and
okay.
solar. Yeah, we're using wind and solar power because those are so reliable, aren't
Reliable.
they? I know if my
We're gonna get
baby was
halfway through.
I mean, if my baby was on a pod, I'd feel so much more secure about that situation if I knew its life was dependent upon sunshine and wind.
Totally.
Just
Anyways.
me. So after we make our climate allegiance, known. It talks about this allows infertile couples to conceive a baby that's genetically theirs. So, women who don't have wombs due to cancer or other conditions. I thought, what other conditions do we have in society that sometimes involve women no longer having their uteruses?
Hmm.
Gosh, it's a mystery, isn't it, Georgia?
Hmm. I just can't quite put my finger on what that might be.
So,
Anyway,
so apparently, this means that premature births and C-sections will be a thing of the past, and this will help countries with population decline, severe population decline. And I thought, so the solution is artificial wombs instead of couldn't people just have sex in
but
the
they
usual fashion?
but they want it. Okay, so they're telling us, and especially Bill Gates, he's got that big climate model that says the Earth's resources to the population that's going like this. The resources are going to go down, the population's going to go up. We're not going to have enough to sustain ourselves. So that was the whole reason why they were kicking into high gear their health awareness and really discouraging people to have children at all. And we've ran the gambit on excuses as to why we don't want to have children. It's expensive. It's bad for the environment. It's, selfish. It's I'm a white person and whatever. So why all of a sudden now is it okay? Why are we worried about the dipping in the populace? Because the only place that we are seeing a dip in the populace is in the West and white populations. So all your Cuban, your Mexican, your Asian, your African.
Not Japan or South Korea. Those were mentioned specifically.
Right. Because they have the birthing restrictions still. China kind of let up on that, correct?
Oh, did Japan and South Korea ever have birthing restrictions? I didn't know that.
I thought
I knew
did.
China. I knew that China had the one child policy for years, and now they got issues. I didn't know about their neighbors, but
yeah, I thought they did. I could be wrong. Be wrong. China,
fact check us.
please do. But I was going to say that those birthing rates are actually comparable to what they need for repopulation. It is primarily your Western cultures or your white Caucasian root races that are actually not seeing the repopulation rates.
Well, when you tell people they're the root of all evil by virtue of their skin color, sometimes it has a bad psychological effect.
No.
So let's hear about the facilities themselves. In these facilities, you'll be very reassured to know there are 75 state-of-the-art labs that can accommodate 400 growth pods. They call them growth pods because that's not dehumanizing. And each building of this can grow 30,000 babies per year.
Oh my God.
And these pods are designed to perfectly replicate the conditions of the uterus. Are they?
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. 30.
Well, you see now the problem with that statement up top is it's not attached to a biological woman. So,
yeah.
I mean, you're missing one of the key components here.
I thought so too, but I don't have a PhD, so obviously I'm just not smart enough to understand these things. Clearly.
Just a YTC, right? A YouTube channel.
Yeah, God. Oh, but this is an infection-free environment, don't you know? The materials they use for the pods, apparently that somehow prevents germs and whatnot from latching onto them, which, okay. I want more than their word for that, but, fine. And they have sensors monitoring the babies, and they had little attachments to the baby head and their little video that looked creepy to monitor their life signs.
Well, okay. So how do you get a sterile environment that mimics the womb, but somehow you got inside there to attach electrodes to the baby's head to monitor life? Like, and you couldn't watch it?
Oh yeah. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. So this is all run by an AI system, of course, because what could possibly go wrong with AI systems? And in addition to monitoring the life signs and its normal vitals, it also monitors its physical features and reports any potential genetic abnormalities.
Flag on the
Mm-hmm.
field. I thought this was supposed I thought this whole process was supposed to usurp those biological miscalculations. Wasn't that the reason for picking and choosing the
Uh
proper
huh.
genes?
Oh yeah, they
Huh.
talk about how after they get various candidates that they are selected for what they described genetic superiority, whatever the
Hmm.
fuck that's supposed to mean. So I'm wondering if you're
Listen.
so sure you got the genetically superior ones, how are we having growth abnormalities here?
Well, what is genetically superior? Because I know
Hmm.
one famous man in history who thought he knew who the hell the genetically superior race was, and it didn't pan out too well.
Yeah,
Kanye?
yeah, I mean he's not remembered fondly to say the least. I mean it just goes to show. I mean the people who actually do learn from history are condemned to watch the mistakes and repeated mistakes of the people who didn't or couldn't be bothered to learn about it. Oh, but these pods, they have a screen on them because we do everything with screens now, and it gives you real-time data on the baby's development of their mental progress. How are they
Can
measuring that?
can you hook it up Bluetooth to Alexa?
There is an app. That was the very next thing. There's an app. You can get that app
I
right on your phone.
knew it. I knew it. Somehow I knew there was going to be an app for that.
Oh, but it gets better. So you see, you don't actually have to visit this baby factory, baby farm, whatever you want to talk it. They say you can use your app to keep track of the baby's development on your phone from the comfort of your zone. Zone, putting me in mind of those 15-minute cities where people are zoned and I guess has climate budgets and aren't supposed to be moving around and all that weird stuff. So we're making a few assumptions about the structure of society by this time of the video, which is
Hmm.
very alarming.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it also
I
tells you what kind of
wonder.
people they want to reproduce too.
Well, I was going to say, since we're so into creating legislation, could that possibly morph into something criminal for potential parents who are, bringing this life force onto the earth? If you go outside of your zone while your child's in gestation, can they hold you criminally liable for that?
Oh, I'm sure they could. That's why we have an app. That's why
I
we
was going to
have an app.
say, I mean, that's like wearing an ankle monitoring device. I mean, you could, even when I had my kids, you could leave the hospital, like you had your bracelet on. You couldn't take the child out. The
Mm-hmm.
child's bracelet was, if it went through the doors, it dung, and then it
Mm-hmm.
supposedly alerted the nursing staff and all that jazz. But I could leave. I mean, there was a good chance that I could have walked out of that hospital and abandoned the children at that point in time, because they weren't monitoring me. But I see this as being potentially dangerous. Like, what happens if you get into this with your partner and then your partner and you decide that you don't want to do this anymore and he flies the coop? What are you going to do? Just go to the app and track them and then be like, oh yeah, he's trying to run out on child, or
Mm-hmm.
she is trying
Mm-hmm.
to run out on child support.
I wonder about that. I also wonder if there might be contractual things of, if you break up or you decide to back out of it, we'll just pull the plug on it. And
Mm,
I'm thinking that
yeah.
takes the issue of abortion to a whole other different kind of level. That's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a difficult enough discussion as it is, as things stand. But when you have the baby in the pod, and these pods are clear. I mean, and there's a link in the description below if you want to watch the video yourself. I recommend sedatives. Just
Or
so you don't,
alcohol.
yeah, so you don't have a complete heart attack or a stroke while you watch it. But the pods apparently are clear. So
Yeah.
yeah, you'd be looking at the baby that you pulled the plug on.
Hmm.
I mean,
Well,
weird.
when I was doing just a scan through the internet, they had a lamb in a very early edition of this technology. It's like more of a plastic bag than a pod.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you said, kind of looking at it, and I thought about putting it in the promo, but it just kind of creeped me out a little too much. I couldn't do it. Um, just looking at it is so odd. Like women get sonograms, and that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like you said, to see it all, to see everything as it's happening,
Oh
that's got to
yes.
be something to behold, or at least you would think you would get a little bit of respect for it.
Oh, let's touch on that. The apps provide high resolution pictures of the baby's development at any time, and it can provide a time lapse of the baby's growth, and you can share that video with loved ones.
Oh, so that's just a marketing scheme. Now we're just going to
Yeah.
play on the heartstrings of a very delicate natural process and,
Uh huh.
observe it in the most unnatural way and then pretend like it's, something that we can, I don't know, put on YouTube or what? Because people are
Yeah.
going to do that.
A
They're going
thousand
to do that.
percent. They absolutely will. I mean,
Ugh,
there's no way that they won't. I mean, can
yeah.
you imagine? Whew.
They're going to charge people to watch it too. I bet.
Oh,
This whole
goodness.
thing is a big money scheme, in my opinion. I think that that's exactly where this is because who can pay for this stuff?
Rich people, which are the only ones who they want to, actually utilizing this kind of service. I think it's the only type of people they want reproducing because those are the people who are more likely to buy into this institutional takeover of every shitty idea that has ever existed. They're the ones who you can count on to conform. I mean, that is absolutely what it is. They are trying, they don't want to go to the trouble of, or the expense of, actively killing people like you and me. They just want to slowly breed us out of existence. I think that's what it is. It's a nice death camp. It's open air. It's open range. It's not like they're suffering. I
Can you
mean,
smoke?
oh yeah. I mean, I swear we're being reduced to less than the level of livestock with this. But you'll be happy to know that inside of the growth pod, there are internal speakers that will play a range of music and words to help the baby's development. And on the app, you can choose from playlists that have been pre prepared for you. And you can also, through the app, sing directly to your baby so they can become familiar with your voice before they're born.
Mm. Well, I was going to ask that too because this brings a lot of questions about bonding. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of the bond between a mother and a child happens during that gestation period, and
Yeah.
anybody that's ever been pregnant will tell you that. Now, personally, I hated being pregnant. I hated everything about being pregnant, but I was still bonded with the child. Like the symptoms of being pregnant were not associated with the growth and respect of growth of life in my body.
Mm-hmm.
So, as separate as those two reactions to the process are, they can coexist.
Yeah.
So, my first thing whenever I heard about this stuff was, there are a lot of women who go through postpartum depression. And then there's a lot of women who go through a dysphoria where they're not attached to their child, which brings
Mm-hmm.
on a delayed onset postpartum depression. So, what is this going to do psychologically to both mother and child when there's not that 9-month gestation period of bonding?
I can't begin to imagine. I know on the Lotus Eaters, they were saying, is anyone else concerned that we're going to be breeding a generation of sociopaths and psychopaths? Because this just isn't natural. This isn't normal. And what about, like you say, the moms? I mean, are you going to feel the same thing for your baby that you grew in a pod than if you had gone through a normal pregnancy? Are you really?
I don't see how, because we go
Mm-mm.
back to the experiments that they did with monkeys and primates that lost their parents in a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And they would give the monkeys, a cuddly thing to feed from and a not cuddly thing to feed from. The monkeys that fed from the cuddly thing did much better psychologically and fitting back into their primate, I don't know what they're called, herds or whatever. And then the ones that didn't, they had issues. So if we are already running these experiments and we're seeing these responses in nature, hello,
Yeah.
McFly, what are we doing? Why do we think this is a good idea?
The unwillingness to connect point A to point B to realize you're going to end up with result C is truly astonishing. Because it's, as you say, it's not like we have not done experiments on other very similar species and realized, oh, this process is bad. And so maybe we don't do that to ourselves. Maybe. Ooh, but here comes one of my favorite lines from this. Our goal is to provide you with an intelligent offspring that truly reflects your smart choices.
Okay. How many
I think I
high
killed Georgia.
Q, high IQ, low functioning fucking individuals exist in this world? Do we need more? Do we need more
Yeah.
high IQ, low functioning individuals? You know who you are. You know who you are. I'm just going to say you are very, very intelligent people. But when it comes to common sense and just plain logic, you suck. You
Yeah.
fucking suck. And I don't want any more high IQ, low functioning individuals because you know what that does? Honestly, that leads these people to believe that they are too good for what they're good at, that
Yeah.
they need to be something more than what they excel at. And that's how we get a bunch of college educated, excuse my language, fucks who refuse to do the production work
Mm-hmm.
to get to where they need to go, monetarily speaking. You got to put in the work to get the reward. But the IQ level of these individuals makes them feel that they are above that production level work. And they're not. You've
Mm-mm.
never put in that production. So you can tell me how it works on paper, but you can't physically do the work. And therein lies the problem. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need you to tell me how the fuck to do it. I need it done. So where does any of this get us moving into the future? So what? So we have a bunch of high IQ individuals. If they don't produce shit, what are we getting? What are we
Well,
getting?
well, what about this? Clearly, intelligence is being treated as the highest priority of value. I'm a reasonably intelligent person. I think intelligence does help, but intelligence is not wisdom. Intelligence is not practical use of knowledge. Intelligence doesn't mean that you're a moral or an ethical person or even pleasant to have around the dinner table. These are not the same things. And whatever happened to it takes all sorts to make a world? You need
Ugh.
different kinds of skill sets. I mean, can you imagine? Because there's going to be all these people who think a certain way about the world and they're going to be designing their babies along that assumption. And then you have all these children and society can't function because they are not the right tool for the right job. Just saying. Just
Are we
saying.
seeing that now?
Yeah, I mean, why are we doing more? Why is anyone encouraging more?
We just didn't do it enough, Brigantia. It just needs more because then if there's more, then it'll be better. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't
Funny,
convince me either.
it doesn't work that way with chocolate. So I don't really think it works that way with anything else. But maybe it's
Mm,
just me. But going
you haven't
back to
had
the
enough.
whole bonding issue, they talked about how they're going to improve your bonding experience because they anticipated this objection with your baby through VR. There are a 360-degree camera in the baby's growth pod. And through your VR, you'll be able to kind of see what they see and hear what they hear and sort of experience what they're experiencing as they develop. And if that's not enough, they have some kind of high-techy suit thing that sends signals of the baby's movement that allow you to feel the baby's kicks and when they're rolling around and all that. And then you, of course, can share that experience also with friends and family. Yeah.
Anybody else get the feeling that you're getting sold a bunch of bullshit? I mean, to
Yeah. How could
even
you not be?
to even entertain the idea that you could personally replicate what you think that fetus is experiencing. God, what a fucking egotistical statement.
I mean, we are so far into the realm of arrogance. I mean, the idea of we have scientifically reproduced the womb. Have ya? You are so sure you know what every single function, every single sensation, you're so sure you know every aspect about that process that we have only recently, in the last 100 years, gotten any meaningful scientific data on. You're so sure you can
Well,
go a
here's my
step beyond
problem.
nature.
When the organs are in development, they're not functioning as they would in full development, i.e., your eyesight, i.e., your brain waves, i.e., your lung function, i.e., your cardiac rhythm isn't even regulated. I believe that it's very similar to the mothers or something weird with the heart. But it baffles my mind because, again, this is the argument that you make in abortion, is that the fetus at a certain point cannot feel. And I agree with you because they're not fully functioning organs yet. But somehow in this pod with this technology, we're going to show you what that baby feels and sees and hears. You dumb son of a bitches. You just fucked yourselves.
Well, I hear about this because the older the baby gets, the more aware it will become. I mean, in normal circumstances, it's in a very dark, very opaque kind of environment. It can't see what's going on because the pods are clear. We can see in, but then so I do. Can babies open their eyes? Are they going to be able to see outside the womb? How's that going to affect them psychologically if they can? And what about just the light? Even if they can't see, because nature intended for them to grow in the dark, what effect is it going to have with them growing in the light?
Shit, I didn't think about that, but that's a very valid fucking point. What is that going to do? I would hate to say, are you going to be nurturing them with artificial light? Is it going to be very similar to the incubation period for like jaundice? Are we, what kind of light are we talking about here? Because that does matter. I mean, if you're talking about sunlight, you could affect the sensitive melatonin in the kid's skin before they come out of the womb. If you're talking about artificial light, does that mean that they're going to have a vitamin D? I mean, are you going to see more vitamin D deficiencies because there's not natural occurring vitamin D from sunlight from the mother to the child? Like, there's a lot. Like, okay, well, here's another one. You're talking about feeding through a tube. So what are you going to use real food to feed these babies? Because then we're talking about, is this going to create allergies? Is this going to create intolerance to anything?
Oh, I'm so glad you bring all of this up because we've got an artificial umbilical cord. Isn't that nice? So let's talk about the bioreactors because all the pods are connected to these gigantic bioreactors. There's two. One is to give the baby the best nutrients. What does that mean?
Right.
Yeah, and in addition to that, this is also a liquid that serves as the amniotic fluid. They're not even saying it's similar to, they're saying it's serving as amniotic fluid, and contained within are hormones, growth factors, which they did not define in the video, and antibodies. Now, what does that mean with the antibodies?
Well, and again, this goes back to the symbiotic relationship between fetus and parent. All of that is naturally adjusted for through the mother's whole system, tailor-made to the child. Like,
that's why we have an AI. They literally said it will give the babies custom nutrients to suit their needs.
Bullshit. Bullshit. I call bullshit. How would you even know? You wouldn't know. The fuck you would know. That's impossible. That's fucking impossible. There's no way. You can only guess what the baseline nutrients are going to be. You can't, because Oh my, okay. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. This is exactly the rant that needs to happen. And frankly, if there's a YouTube channel out there that comments on current events and you're not talking about this, what the fuck is wrong with you? There needs to
True.
be a loud outcry, and it needed to happen 5 years ago, probably, but let's do it today. But
Right.
since you're so enthused about the first bioreactor, let's talk about waste extraction.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah,
Oh,
that because that happens. That's natural. Again, another process that was naturally taken care of by the mother, but you figured it out. Let's hear what you got to say.
well, we're also relying on that artificial umbilical cord. What it does is that it feeds all the gunk back into the other bioreactor. And this bioreactor is filled with engineered enzymes that enable a recycling process to take place. And then once it's been fully recycled, it goes back into the nutrients bioreactor. And so everything is a self sustaining system.
Wouldn't that assume then every baby is going to need the same things? Again, I go back to calling bullshit about, okay, so your AI is so fucking smart. It can pick and choose these nutrients, and by the genetic composition that you typed into that fucking program, it's going to tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt XYZ is going to happen. But you motherfuckers can't tell me when it's going to rain, snow, sleet, or
Uh
fucking
huh.
hail. Fuck out of here. Sorry.
Well, and think about this. Okay. They're trying to make this a foolproof system, completely self-sustaining. Why are we believing that they say that they're engineered enzymes, which tells me this isn't naturally occurring? This
Mm-mm.
would not usually happen. How are we so sure that it's actually doing a good enough job purifying? What kind of horrors could possibly result from that kind of recycling system?
Not only that, but long term sustainability. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So you sustain these fetuses, feti, fetal people in these pods, okay? You sustain them. But what happens to that fake genetic material when it is reintroduced to real biological chemical compounds? Your fruits, your vegetables, your medicines.
Mm-hmm.
How does your standard vaccine hold up in a DNA that's so genetically or is that it? Are we going to prevent all diseases? Is this for like disease resistance? Are we beefing up this
Well,
genetic code?
Well, I'm wondering, and there's been such a fuss and bother over, parental consent and our parents deciding what kind of treatments and vaccines their kids get, or is everyone else getting a say, and then the parents just have to follow orders. What could be putting into these nutrients or these amniotic fluids, their replacements, that could be goodness knows what. I mean, and you're putting an awful lot of trust in these people. Supposing that they get a little nudge from the government saying, yeah, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and don't really read the parents in on this. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And considering the ongoing scandals that we have about things in other institutions, horrible things that should never have taken place, are we really trusting the same kind of people with the same kind of authoritarian worldview to make these decisions about the well-being of a child of yours that you put in a pod instead of your body?
Well, what kind of insurance policies are you going to have to take out on these type of pods?
Yeah.
Like you said, I'm sure that there's going to be times and instances of natural disaster
Mm-hmm.
or you know tragedy, crime, things to that effect. What, how are we going to treat these things? Now, this was also another big topic in the abortion debate. Whether
Mm-hmm.
you're killing a pregnant woman, it goes down as a double murder, and why? That woman wanted that pregnancy. So therefore you've murdered her child. I didn't think this was so damn hard to understand. But now you're talking about keeping these children, if you could call them that, away from the parents. I mean, there's no protection. There's nobody that really cares about them. So who the fuck cares if a tornado comes through and knocks out 30, how would you say, 30,000
Yeah, 30,
fucking,
well, 30,000 a year.
yeah,
30,000 a year.
Okay, so however many pods. Let's say there's 1,000 pods in a facility. You know what I mean? Like, and
Hmm.
they're doing it whatever many times a year. So what? You're just gonna be like, oopsies. Oh well, we lost these babies. We'll grow you another one though.
Oh,
Does that
oh.
how? Does that affect us as well? So okay. Everybody wants to talk about their disdain for human life and how we don't
Mhm.
respect it anymore. What does that do for respect of human life? When
Oh,
it's so disposable.
I would have to think that it has to be even more devalued than what it is now. I mean, and we are in serious trouble right now. But when it's just, oh, easy peasy, this is a convenient way for you to have a baby. Or, oh, easy peasy, something happened, don't worry, we'll get you a replacement. I'm sorry. I had three miscarriages in my 20s. If I, in my old age suddenly got knocked up, I would not view that child as a replacement for the ones that I lost. It would be a new child. And of course, I would cherish it just as the ones I did that I lost. But it's not the same.
No.
I, nothing could persuade me that it would be the same.
And why
So,
get married then?
yeah,
Because
what for?
if we're talking about picking and choosing genetic material, then what stops us from just going to a fucking catalog and being like, oh, Tinder, swipe right, this guy, I want this one because I like this one. Then he don't even get a fucking choice. He don't get a choice. He just here in the bank and little you running around. Who fucking knows?
There's actually a dystopian. I think there was a movie made about it, like late '60s, early '70s. I forget what it's called, but they had this weird society where people lived till they were 30, and then they would get zapped with something that way, for population control. They also had that kind of really detached parental thing. The babies were grown in pods, and it was just people they collected the genetic material from parents, and they mixed it around to make sure there was not any inbreeding, and that was just what they did. I mean, we're talking about doing that essentially for reals, or at least potentially. But since we've decided that these are truly horrible people, would you like to hear about their elite package? Because we've just talked about the basics up until now.
Oh yeah, give it to us. What do we get if we are Elon Musk status? Do we get to grow our pods on Mars? Is that a thing yet?
Oh,
If
they
we
didn't
have
mention
Mars
Mars.
babies?
They did not mention March and Born yet. But if you want your baby to stand out and have a brighter future, literally what they said, you can genetically engineer the baby before putting it in the pod. They have a gene editing tool that can meddle with apparently over 300 genes. You can customize, they said customize, eye color, hair color, skin tone, physical strength, height, and level of intelligence. And they can fix any inherited genetic diseases in your family history. You know.
Bullshit. I call bullshit again. I call fucking bullshit again. Because if that were the fucking case, God, then why don't we have a cure for polio? Like, we have a vaccine for
Right?
polio, but we don't have a cure for fucking. You isolated that son
Yeah.
of a bitch to a point where you can give it to people, they can fight it the fuck off. Their immune system becomes immune to that disease, but you motherfuckers ain't cured it yet. But you're gonna tell these assholes with all this money. There was a SVU about this, as a matter of fact, many years ago, Special Victims Unit, they did it, and it was the doctor was getting yelled at by the patient because the baby didn't play Mozart, and apparently she paid for her baby to learn or be this like music star, and the doctor told her, well, maybe it wasn't the husband's genes, maybe it was your genes, and he wasn't the husband, he was a sperm donor. But so what happens then? You pay for this shit, and it doesn't. He's not the strongest kid in the class. He was told he was going to be 7 feet tall. He's 5'3". What do you do? Who do you hold responsible?
Well, we're just going to have to sue, aren't we? We're going to have to go to the judge and say, "I paid for a service. We have a contract, and look what happened." Can you imagine? Imagine yourself in the judicial robes, and someone comes into your courtroom with this bullshit. I mean, do you just retire and say, "Nah, nah, I'm not doing this
I'd tell her
anymore"?
maybe it was your genes, not his.
Oh, so Now, of course, with this being a pod, that means we have eliminated the pain of childbirth, labor contractions, muscle aches, the unfortunate ramifications that sometimes occurs to a ladies down below. A thing of the past. You don't even have to worry about that anymore. They have a safe, pain-free, smooth, convenient. There's that word convenient again. And this kind of birth can be done at the push of a button. You and your partner, because we don't have spouses anymore, we have partners. What happens is that you go to the facility, they show that you have your own little special birthing room, and the fluid is drained from the pod, and you push the button, and you can just easily remove the baby from the pod so that you and your partner can enjoy this birthing process. And for transparency, they will offer a free genetic paternity test after the birth to ensure that the baby is a genetic match to the parents. And so there's no worries that you might have accidentally taken home the wrong one. How about that?
Oh, wait. I gave you my genetic material. I picked out my own matching genetic material. I trusted you up until this point. Now I'm taking my baby home, right? You did all this and you can't dummy up some fucking paperwork. I'm just saying, then you'd be the moron. If you get all the way to taking the baby out of the pod and you're like, nah, that bitch don't look nothing like me. I want a paternity test. What makes you think that they could be like, that they can't just, yeah, it's your baby?
Or what about this scenario? It actually is yours, but you edit it to the point to where it doesn't resemble you at all. I mean, it might as well be a stranger just because you are tweaking this and tweaking that.
Is that going to mess with the bonding?
Oh, I'm sure that it would. I mean, what's the first thing that happens? After the baby's born, we counted the fingers and toes. We've made sure whether it's a boy or a girl, and we're cooing over it. And and people say, "Oh, I think that's his eyes. I think that's your nose. Oh, the shape of her face. It reminds me of great grandma Cecilia." It's the first thing people do. They try to find recognizable family features in them, and they could be edited right out of existence.
Yeah, okay, that was cut. We're on YouTube. Anyways. Yeah, we've been trying to get rid of a lot of undesirable traits for a pretty long time. One of them being whiteness, right? So if you accidentally dip a little Milano into everybody's genetic code, then we just speed up that mixed snowball race of, oh, we're all in this together faster, don't we?
Yeah, because we've got to make sure that these people who are really pale don't think that they are a people or that they have had these civilizations and cultures. And we can't let them think that any of that matters because, we've been trying to get rid of them. They are the root of all evil, Georgia. And I'm really disappointed that you're not supporting this effort to remove that root. They're trying to get rid of original sin.
I know.
I tell you what kind of person are you?
Ever since they told me that Slavic heritage is actually part of the minority status, I've been taking advantage of that shit,
Oh, that's like Luke. Oh, goodness. I can't remember his last name. He shows up on Timcast a lot, our humble t-shirt salesman.
Yes. Yeah. Redkowski or something like that. Yes. I can't pronounce his last name.
That dude is paler than me.
Yes.
And he's talking about how he's a person of color now. So I'm like, okay. It's a great meme.
Take it.
But, whatever.
It's actually side story. When I was working for the census, I was down in the city of Guyton, and a gentleman stopped me. He goes, "You got a real nice skin color. Are you mixed?" I said, "No, I'm just Slavic and, your basic European mutt." And he goes, "Slavic? That sounds exotic." I said, "Yeah, the country doesn't even exist anymore."
The tribe split into
how
many
exotic.
Pieces.
Thinking to myself, like, I'm not the best geographical person, but Slavic is not exotic. That's pretty common.
Oh, I tell you, some of the dumb ones, we just can't help them, can we? So after they talked about this wonderful, beautiful birthing process, they re-emphasized that there's no worries about power cuts or carbon emissions, and they reset about the solar and the wind power and how the pods operate with minimal uh, power requirements, which I don't see how that could possibly be true.
No, considering how it wipes out the human body to produce all of these things, and now you're artificially constructing. And who is who is the chemical supply company
Yeah.
behind all of that? That kind of worries me a little bit, knowing what Bill Gates is doing to the genetic codes of food, to
Hmm.
turn around and think that he could be playing in the genetic codes of human beings. That's fucking scary.
Well, and how do we know all of these nutrients aren't coming from the bugs? And what if this is kind of predispositioning the children to want to eat the bugs? Good little
Ew.
sirs. Well, I mean, they're doing, they're telling us they're doing everything else. Why is that out of the
True.
question?
Well, who's to say what the fuck they're telling us is goddamn truth, anyways?
Oh,
Because
I know. I don't see how. I do. I want to see paper, and I want to see reviews from people who are actively hostile to this, because I mean, just as from, even if we take all the morality and the spiritual and the human element out of it, because let's be honest, this is about removing the human element in one more, in the most personal, intimate, primal aspect of life. Let's
mm,
just look at it scientifically. I do not see how this could possibly be sound science.
well, I guess it really depends on what you're attempting to accomplish. Because don't get me wrong, I adore the idea of utilizing medical technology to aid humans in living a more sustainable lifestyle. If you're
Hmm.
talking about giving bionic limbs that actually are reactive to your nerves so that you can
Hmm.
grasp again, so that a veteran can have full use of his arms
Yeah.
after, a tragic loss. Or if you want to implant pacemakers into people with severe cardiac issues and things to that effect, if you want to use the technology to repair in utero a baby's heart or lungs, or whatever malfunction is going on in the natural body, if you want to do those things, more power to you. Kudos.
Hmm.
I want to fund those things. I want to be involved in, I want to learn about those things. But when you decide that you, as man, know better than nature, that's where I have a problem with everything, from
Yeah.
climate change to this bullshit to telling people how they need to feel about the human experience. Because you're
Yeah.
right, this all comes back down to, what is this programming out of society? We've got nothing good to put in. We're all taking a step back from what our responsibilities as humans are.
Yeah.
Responsibility is to reproduce, period. That's it.
Yeah, and you don't have to go to the trouble of it. And and if the factory way is not quite ideal for you, you can have the convenient solution of doing this at home.
I saw that. And I did
Yeah.
put the picture of the pod, like it's sitting on the coffee table next to this woman in a chair. And I thought to myself, like, God, what a centerpiece. Could you imagine coming over to my house and, like, this is my Christmas tree and that's my ceiling fan and, oh, that's my baby.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Okay.
creepy. So, for those who haven't seen it yet, you have the growth pod and the miniaturized bioreactor, which, yeah, how could that possibly be a problem in the home? And their long-lasting battery pack.
Is
Really,
that
it's gonna.
microwave compatible?
I don't know. But yeah, you can just incubate your building. And they didn't even say incubate it in your own home. They said incubate it in your building. The building that's in the zone of that you're not probably really allowed to leave. Yeah. And, you never have to visit the factory. And they call it the factory because I guess that's what it is. We are manufacturing humans. And you can own your special growth pod. And, after you grow one baby at home with no complications, you can just periodically add to the family. And won't that be nice?
Oh,
Yeah.
I got a really bad. You ever like picture a trough? And I'm thinking, like, hey, honey, are you in the mood? Nah, not tonight. Go hit the trough, bitch.
Ugh. I swear. I mean,
And then you can put it on display. This is
yeah.
the genetic material that is going to be our baby soon.
Oh, ew. I tell you what, some things happen behind closed doors for a reason, gang. I'm just saying. This is one of the most obscene things that I've ever heard of, and I know we say that almost every single week because every week there are fresh horrors of this going on.
That
Uh,
is true.
yeah. So the last notes that I have on this is that the Frankenstein of this concept is called Dr. Hashim Al Ghalili, and apparently, this process that he's conceptualizing, scientists and engineers have been working on things similar to this since the 1950s. Oh, so comforting. So, if you're tired
Oh,
of waiting to hear from an adoption agency, you're tired of waiting to find a suitable surrogate, or you're worried about complications, don't worry. EctoLife got you covered. Now, before I move on to the very last horrific thing, is that the worry about complications at that part of the video, what they have is a woman standing sideways in front of a mirror, kind of pinching at her thighs. I don't think she's worried about medical complications. I think she's worried about pregnancy weight and stretch marks and will I be as pretty as I used to be. That's not a complication. That's just nature taking its goddamn toll. I mean, that's
there's
all
ways
that it is.
there's ways to prevent that. And, it's battle markings. I used to get really
Yeah.
upset about it when I was younger, but I'll tell you the fuck what, it's not worth losing sleep over because, the people that put them there, they don't fucking care.
Yeah.
95% of the motherfucking time. And if you got yourself a guy that does fucking care after he put him there, guess what, bitch? He don't love you. I'm sorry.
No. If anything, I would think take kind of a weird sort of pride in like, yeah, there's proof. She carried my child. That's my woman.
Yeah.
There's my baby. I did that. Please don't
Yeah.
kill me,
Yeah.
honey. Love you
Yeah,
really.
like I say it's better than a goddamn tattoo because they ain't going nowhere and you ain't lying to nobody. Maybe that's the
No.
problem. You bitches out here are trying to lie to people. That's what the fuck the problem is. You got
Yeah.
fake hair, fake nails, fake eyelashes, fucking fake teeth, fucking fake
Mm-hmm.
tits, fucking fake ass. What the fuck about you is real anymore? Why not have a fake baby? Why not? We can all just be fake together. But I don't see that being a viable solution
No.
if you want those kids to be healthy and happy and have their own lives, because after that, after all of this, like seriously,
Mm-hmm.
what are you going to have left when all of these things of human emotion are taken away from you? You don't have the opportunity to love and lose. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
You're in a very unique position to have a very unique take on this, because I don't think that there's any part of you that would say I just wouldn't go through that process. Even though you've had tragedy in
Mm-hmm.
your attempts, it not only helped strengthen you, see your path forward, and know that this is nature. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's not you, it's what nature wants. It also helped you gain respect for other people in that position, and
Yeah, absolutely it did.
look for other surrogate children to pseudo and supplement even adult children. Let's be realistic here, because even adults need that mothering and need that nurturing.
Well,
But
I
if
mean, what do we think we're doing on my YouTube channel? I mean,
yeah,
that's
but
exactly what it is.
if we breed it out and nobody has those natural instincts anymore, who's going to do the work that you do? Who's going to be that loving aunt? Who's going to be the one that the kids go to when they can't go to mom? Because look, I'm a bitch and you will treat my kids in a much different fashion than I will treat my kids. And they know this, and this is what like helps bond them. So I just feel like that is going to be so detrimental to us in the future, and people are so anti bad feelings that they don't even see the good in things like tragedy or loss or
Yeah.
going
Mhm.
through that negative stretch marks and morning sickness and birth process.
Yeah. Well, I knew a woman who she didn't even really like the heavy use of painkillers during labor. She thought that lessened the ability of the mother to bond with the child because at the end of it, she said, "I fought to bring you into the world, and now I am just consumed with looking after you." So, I mean, she was talking about. This was, I think, 7 years ago. We had this conversation. I would Gina, if you're out there now and you're hearing this conversation, let me know what you think now because this absolutely relates to what you were talking about, only this is on a way beyond kind of scale. And what about something else? Because I went through my experiences that when I was younger and of actual childbearing years, I did have those three miscarriages, and then I was divorced. Yay, not the right guy. Uh, and and I had a series of relationships that they did not work out into marriages. And by the time I did remarry, I was 37. Now, because of my past history in my 20s and the fact that while I took some precautions in between then, I wasn't the most careful person in the world, but it never happened. That tells me that nature said no. So, what if people never learn the lesson that I learned? What if they never get to hear that no? Because sometimes nature is telling you no for a reason. Maybe there's just something, I'm a reasonably healthy person, but maybe there's something about me that wouldn't produce reasonably healthy offspring. Maybe there's a reason. And maybe because I am in that situation, I can do the work that I do now.
Mm.
You got to look for those silver linings. I mean, and so many people, if they're not having their ideal life and things exactly as they want them, they just cannot cope. And I think that is adding to the insanity of the world.
You hit the nail on the head. They can't hear no. That
Yeah.
if you tell them no, it is a personal offense to their
Hmm.
psyche. They cannot handle it. And to them, there's no lesson in no. They've been told so many times, well, if you hear no, that just means you got to go again. And that's where you get these really annoying
Yeah.
people who just keep going and going and going. It's like, God, at what point do you just give it the fuck up and find something that you were meant to do? Not everything is for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. It
And for a
sucks.
variety of reasons. I mean, and some of those reasons are outside your control. And this process, it's saying, oh no, it's totally within your control for the right price. I'm thinking
Yeah.
this is not healthy. That mindset in and of itself is not healthy.
So, what about the rest of us that didn't get this choice genetic material code? Does that now give them more of an argument to this systemic bullshit that people are, oh, well, I can't succeed because I didn't come from the right genetic material and I didn't have this prestige? Does that then lend any weight to their argument?
Do you remember the prophetic tale of Gattaca?
No, please
Oh,
refresh.
well, that was the lovely, I think it was late 90s movie, but I could be mistaken as to date. But the whole scenario is that pretty much everyone who was in an elite position was genetically engineered. And
Mm.
you were tested at birth to determine your potential and what jobs you were allowed for and everything else. And the whole plot was there were these two brothers. One was conceived naturally and he was considered lesser. And so a lot of doors were shut to him. And then the second brother was genetically engineered and he was one of those elites, and it was examining that dynamic because you want to talk about a classist system. I mean, holy cow, they had it. I mean, if you were an invalid because of your genetic code, there were buildings you weren't allowed to go into, let alone jobs, let alone choosing potential partners in life.
We're getting
You,
pretty close. We're getting
yeah.
really fucking close.
I mean,
I
this is
mean,
literally what they're trying to do. I mean,
yeah. Well, we thought it was bad when it was just the jab versus the unjab, like pure bloods versus this now mRNA genetic modification. Now you're talking about literal genetic modification. So
mhm.
let me, again, I'm sorry. How did you tell me that one thing wasn't what it is, but now we're here talking about doing exactly what you were accused of doing? And if you
Yeah.
know, you know. So,
I
somebody
mean,
want to riddle me that?
I mean, you said it. I mean, we had the purebloods and the jabbed. Well, now we could have the really purebloods and the Frankensteins. And if people think that is not exactly what would be said, I don't know what world you're living in. Grow up, wake up, smell the coffee. It's time to stop pretending like there aren't, actively malevolent forces out there. And what's worse, they don't even they might actually believe they're doing humanity a service. I think some of these fuckers are actually drinking their own goddamn Kool-Aid.
Why else would you go along with it? Because you know that there's plenty of people who are going, wait a second. Look, you know, you, what is that really, Tay-Sachs? We're not talking about eradicating, oh, I had uh gotten into this relationship with this person and didn't realize we were both of the same heritage, which
Mm-hmm.
created this child with this genetic markup. We're not talking about removing the abnormalities.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about creating a new normal. Where have we heard that before?
From the same people we've been railing against since before we even met. I mean,
Mm.
it is sick what is going on, and that brings me to the last thing I wanted to really highlight is their little slogan tagline: EctoLife, reinventing evolution. Doesn't that
Oh,
just say it right there? Isn't that like literally the only thing you would need to know about these people? Yeah,
oh goodness. I've said it once, I'll say it again. I'm a Darwinist at heart. Can 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 we just let nature take its course?
yeah,
Just I think the reason, like, because everybody's like, the missing link and evolution, right? So let me just say this. We've been doing this genetic modification bullshit by their admittance since the
hmm
1950s. That's what they're willing to admit it, which
yeah.
means,
Who
they're
knows how far back it really goes? This is what we're prepared to admit in public.
admit in public, okay? But now you're messing so much with the genetic line. How do you know that you didn't interfere with something that was already meant to be for our evolutionary processes? How do you
Yeah.
know? We're talking
Well,
about generations upon generations who
oh yeah.
have been chemically induced. And then you're
hmm
telling me that, oh, well, evolution doesn't exist because we haven't seen any in 100 years. Well, could that have anything to do with you fucking with our genetics? I mean,
Yeah.
just throwing that out there.
Well, let me toss this out because one of my theories about people who have a pronounced magical capability, not someone who's just kind of the general flow of things, but something that's really pronounced, I have always strongly suspected that there may possibly be a genetic component because most of the men who I had any serious feelings for, I have noticed they at least had the capacity. They weren't the practitioners, but from a biological standpoint, that would not have mattered if we had produced offspring because it would have
Right.
inherited the trait from both parents. Supposing that is an evolutionary track that, if not, is not meant to be the next step, but is at least something that is supposed to be inherent within our species. What if that's something they try to edit out? Because think about it, these are power crazy people. We are born with power. It's just a question of do we learn how to use it well. We also tend to be much more independent, a lot more skeptical of authority strictures, and we are much more aligned with the forces of chaos by our nature just because of we have the ability to help shape some of that chaos to bring things into being. They don't want that in their perfect little world. So even if they don't acknowledge the existence of magic or magical people or any of our pagan beliefs, they will recognize independence, defiance, rebelliousness, and they'll say, if that has a genetic component, maybe we just start tapping that back because we don't need that. We went to a lot of trouble to establish our little world order. Maybe we don't need these people messing it up. So we're just going to take that out of the babies.
Let's go back to the whole verification process of everything that they're telling you that they're doing. Look, I've seen snake oil salesmen, false prophets, false idols. These people put on a pedestal your everyday carpet salesman, door to door,
Mm-hmm.
con men, if you will. All right. this seems to, again, to me, to be the biggest con on the face of the earth, that you can get away with scot-free at least for 18 motherfucking years
Mm-hmm.
before anybody realizes this is not what we were sold. This is not the bill of sale for these goods. That this, you're right. How do you confirm that the personality traits are not
Mm-hmm.
going to be identified and taken out? How do you confirm that there's not a micro implant chip in this child's brain where,
Mm-hmm.
shit, they had the Manchurian candidates that they were fucking, brainwashing and shit. How much easier would it be just to plug in a goddamn computer chip, and with Neuralink, we're already there. You want to
Yeah.
do it to adults, and adults are like, yeah, okay, sign me up. And I'm like, okay, Futurama, you can have fun with that.
Right. I mean, I mean, and I've also been thinking about, the stories that we have handed down about ancient civilizations that got a little bit too big for their britches and something happened to knock them back. We have legends of Atlantis. We have that ancient apocalypse guy saying, there's some archaeological evidence that suggests human society goes back a bit further than we thought. And maybe we go in cycles. Oh, golly gee, I'm like, oh, welcome to paganism. And
We've been here for years.
we have. I mean, this is not a strange thought for us. But whether it's an asteroid, or the gods saying, "Oh, those bitches are really out of line. I'm gonna go fuck up their shit before things get too far out of hand." I mean, no matter what the mechanism is, or just our own stupidity, you know. I mean, and what about future fertility? How do we know that there
Yeah.
isn't going to be some selection about which babies are going to be allowed to reproduce and which others aren't? You think about those creepy Georgia Guidestones to like maintain a human population of 500 million. And I'm like, huh.
It's almost, it's almost scary, because after you said that, I was like, so who's to say that again, nature doesn't automatically start weeding out sperm and egg?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because
Hmm.
what would then be the point? Your body physically loses its biological existence.
Yeah, because we're not acting on those imperatives. And I don't care how many doodads and VR stuff you get hooked up to yourself, that's never going to be the same as experiencing it. And we've been
Mm-mm.
talking about it from the female perspective. Well, think about the man. Now he can watch that little baby bump grow. He can put his hand on it. He thinks about it. And during that whole 9 month of development, I mean, more and more of his attention is getting focused on this life that he helped create, and seeing that process and seeing the toll that it takes on his wife, putting him harder into his own masculine urges of, I got to take care of things. There's a whole pre bonding family experience that happens before the baby arrives that is not going to have any stimuli in any real day-to-day kind of way if this pod thing were to ever become common. I mean, can you imagine?
Oh, I can imagine a bunch of little worker bees who never have to leave the assembly line being very miserable, foul individuals who really, you don't care about each other now. So, what the hell do you think that that's going to mean when, again, go into the act of sex,
Mm-hmm.
making the baby? Making
Mm-hmm.
the baby is the best fucking part. You guys want to do it for no reason at all times a day. In the bathrooms, in the fucking library, or at goddamn McDonald's having sex and shit. But no, we don't want to do that to actually like produce a baby. Like, what the fuck? I
Yeah.
don't get it.
Well, I mean, and I mean, what will this mean to accidental pregnancies? I mean, let's say, there's a couple tried for years, nothing happened. They do the pod thing, and then all of a sudden, poof! Now she's pregnant. Well, now what does that mean?
We got
Oh,
a comment
oh
from
no.
Lily.
Oh,
That is very, very sad. And you know
yeah.
what? I
Let
bet
me show
you,
that. Yeah, I can show that on the screen.
I was going to say that's what's great about StreamYard, but I was going to say, I bet you that fucked with her mind.
Oh, how could it
That,
not? At 8 months? Whew.
yeah, yeah. And okay, so this situation right here, you accidentally get pregnant. Okay. First off, good luck finding a doctor at this point, because
Right.
the convenience is going to weed out that the necessity for a medical professional to
You're,
birth babies.
you're not going to have doctors. You're going to have technicians. You just
And
watch.
and say you have complications at 8 months. I mean, I can only assume that there was something that went horribly wrong that messed up the biological process that you couldn't get pregnant again. So we're talking about like potentially bleeding to death. You're
Yeah.
talking about, way more repercussions than just not getting pregnant again.
Hmm.
Like, what happens? What are you going to do?
I mean, and who's going to take responsibility for that? Because if there's one thing we've observed is that we've got quite a shuffle dance going on to evade any kind of responsibility for
Yeah.
any medical mishaps over the past couple of years. I mean, and think about, because you know good and well, if this thing comes into being and is in full production, there's going to be the most ungodly amount of contracts that people have to sign. Do we really think that there isn't going to be a provision in that contract saying that if anything were to go wrong, that it's not their fault?
Well, okay. Say you start a pod baby, but you get pregnant as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then what
Yeah,
happens?
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what if we've heard for years people saying, oh, people should have to get a license before they have a child. Well, the
Swear.
pod babies, that would actually make that scenario possible. Do we start having forced abortions?
Ooh. Well, you just get denied. So it's not nature telling you can't have a baby. It's the doctor, or it's the
Yeah.
fact that you don't have enough money. So let's go
Mhm.
back to this biological superiority. Is there going to be a noticeable genetic difference between children who are born naturally in the womb and these pod babies, to the point where naturally born people will not be viable to these pod people because they're going to want to keep that genetic superiority?
I would think that would happen within the course of one generation.
Right.
I mean,
That's why I mean, look at the way they do with the designer brands and shit, the Balenciaga bullshit. Like,
oh God, yeah.
kids can't even fucking wear off-brand tennis shoes to school. Let some fugly, biologically fucking developed child walk into a classroom full of biologically elite individuals because they're smart. Let's just say two regular smart people had a kid that was on par with these genetic people, but they were fugly in the face. You don't think
Hmm.
that kid's gonna get like picked on? I mean, we dealt with people picking on, retarded kids, Down
Hmm.
syndrome kids, kids that had, poor backgrounds, kids that were different colors, kids that, were eating boogers in the back of the classroom. Like, I just see this being a whole wreck and a mess.
Oh, absolutely it would. And it'll be like, your parents didn't actually love you, because if they did, you would have been in the pod and you would have been pretty like us. I mean, the mean girl syndrome, that'd be on a
Oh God.
whole other level. And what if that, let's say this went on for a period of time without it collapsing in on itself, which in all realism, I think it would collapse in on itself, but let's say it didn't. Well, does there come a period of time when the natural borns and the pods people are no longer genetically compatible? Do we essentially evolve into different species? I am wondering about that.
Totally a possibility. Like I said, breeding out the need for recreating genetic material, because isn't that how a lot of species end up going extinct, is that they do not adapt to their surroundings and
Uh-huh.
find viable mates?
Yeah.
We've been observing this in wildlife for how fucking long now?
Oh, forever. And that raises the question, who's going to be more adaptable and able to survive? Is it, the actual humans who have gone along as nature intended, or is it going to be these laboratory rats? And I'm sorry, that's a terrible thing to think of babies, but what else are they at that point? They are lab rats. And do we think there wouldn't be experimentation beyond what the parents authorized? Really? Does that sound
Well,
like the scientific community we've known over the past couple of years?
the beagles, the monkeys, the rabbits, the
Mm-hmm.
frogs, yeah, the bees. Anybody remember those sons of bitches? They're,
Mm-hmm.
it's just insane. I mean, to even think that it would be a feasible, because again, just because you're putting all these genetic markers to these babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real here. Those qualities are only important to us on a superficial
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
They are not at all a necessity to survive in this environment. Going back to the original reason behind evolution, it was to make your species stronger and adaptable so that they survived. Just because you put all these, pretty markers into a being doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to hold up to the environment you put them in.
That's for
Just my
sure.
opinion.
Well, and especially, I mean, if we've talked about how the psychological ramifications of this are completely unknown, there's no way you could test for that ahead of time. I mean, they might even behave differently to the point where anyone born in the usual fashion is like, there's just something off about them. Maybe I don't date that person. Maybe that's the kind of crazy I'm not interested in getting into. And we already as human beings, we have a pretty interesting discriminatory mating practice as it is. Sometimes it's like, she's nice and all, but her family's weird, so maybe I don't want to get
Yeah.
involved in that. Or some people have issues with someone outside of their religion. Or what I mean, nowadays I think it'd be more so that person is of a different political party and they're horrible people, therefore I'm not banging that. I'm not reproducing with that. I we already have, our discriminatory taste, and if we add on the scientific on top of that, I just don't know what we end up with.
Well, if we've been doing this since the 50s and this is where we are now, I say we can the fucking project. Just
Yeah.
just again my opinion, because apparently it has not worked so well so far, because I still see the same amount of, if not more, crime,
Hmm.
degeneracy, depression, um you take your pick of negativity.
Well, I mean, with all of the stuff that's being pushed onto us, it's taking away all of our human reasons for living. Oh, you'll be able to do a nothing job and be able to relax. Okay, so I don't need to strive and accomplish anything. Okay, so especially for men, that's a huge thing you just took away from them. Oh, you don't have to go through the trouble of having the baby yourself. Oh, okay. So I have lost my identity in a large part as a woman and as a potential mother. Okay, so I don't have to human especially. So we're starting off in pods. They'll be having us eating the bugs and living in our own pods, and then after we're dead, they'll just compost us like we did discuss back in the summer. I mean, is there anything more demeaning? I'm at the point where I'm looking at these projects and I'm saying, how is this not a crime against humanity? That is taking away something that is absolutely sacred. I don't care what religion you are. This is a sacred process. Even if you're an atheist, which many people on the Lotus Eaters are, they still consider this process of reproduction and birth and motherhood and fatherhood to be absolutely sacred and fundamental to society. You're taking that away from us. How is this not an attack on our very being? I mean, just because we're not seeing the blood and guts everywhere, is that the only way we can acknowledge attacks? Really?
Visuals go a long way, and we tend to be behind the eight ball until the we see the whites of their eyes, so to speak, and by that time it's already too late, because Annie left her gun in the fucking closet
Yeah.
instead of having it locked and loaded. So I think that you brought up another really good point about the biological tendencies being weeded out, because it also eliminates that natural argument of biological sex.
Yeah,
And
it
if
does.
we can no longer say that it is the male DNA that converts with the female DNA, and the female is the gestator of that combined genetic material, there goes that biological argument that
Hmm.
makes men and women different.
Yep. Destroys the biological argument, and actually, I think is absolute blasphemy against nature. I mean,
Yeah.
all of this is a message. Nature, yeah, you didn't do it right. We're going to improve on it. Will you?
Fucking egotistical men. Yeah, not men is in like the male genetics. Yeah, I mean like mankind. Like, you guys
Yeah.
need to get over yourselves. You're not that important to this world. I'm just gonna fucking tell you right here, right now. You're not.
Well, and what's even more provoking is that, they want to assume so much power and control over things that are well beyond us, but they won't assert control over things that actually are within our own sphere to do. I mean, our friend Druid Fox, she talks very, very frequently about how humankind has a natural role to play in the environment. We have a certain job to do, and by telling us how evil we are all the time, is preventing people from fulfilling that function and just indulging in this little wallowing whirlpool that has no bottom of how evil they are. I mean, and it just, I mean, the focus is it is completely switched, and
Yeah.
I mean, I will nag. I will nag until my dying day if I need to. But it's really going to take more people speaking up and saying, you know what? How about no? Like it says in the title. How about no?
And I agree, because they have indoctrinated multiple generations upon multiple generations with this climate change narrative. It set the baseline for all of this.
Oh yeah,
And realistically, when we were told, oh yeah, we can manipulate the weather, oh yeah, well, our carbon footprint, oh yeah, all this stuff, we were told that we were above and outside influencers to the earth that we live on. But that cannot physically be possible. We are
no,
genetically composed of and constantly use, consume, and recycle materials that already exist in this planet. By the theory of matter, it cannot be created nor destroyed. Even when we talked about the creation of something from nothing in
hmm
the vacuum, they
hmm
admitted to having to put particles into the vacuum to grow this matter that they claim they created from nothing, which totally debunked their creating something from
yeah.
nothing narrative, which I thought was fucking hilarious. But again, it brings me back to the pagan outlook that we are part of this earth. We're not
hmm
separate from, we're
No,
not devouring of, we're not even leeches, because we get described as parasites
yeah.
and detriments to the planet. We're not. We're all part of it. We need to learn our role in this universe, in this ecosystem.
Yeah, which is why I think long term, why we're going to continue to see the revival of pagan spiritualities, that, whether unconsciously or consciously, we have that innate understanding. I think that's why we will continue to grow and why the other ideologies that have a different take on things will eventually diminish, just because, and it's not because those ideologies are totally devoid of any values. It's just that they're not in alignment with the reality of our existence on this planet. I mean, and that is
Right.
the key thing. And that's why we keep going back to the natural world for confirmation of our beliefs, but for the construction of our beliefs. How much have we evolved in our own understanding just in our conversations over the past 6 months? And it's because we're taking ideas that have been percolating in our little cauldron brains for eons of time, and then we're interacting with them, and it has helped us connect some dots and also to dismiss some other ideas like, oh, okay, because of that she just mentioned, my idea did not logically track. So, I mean, and that's also why we have to keep talking to each other, because it's the only way to go through this process and to find where you belong in the universe is through that relationship with your fellow man, even for introverts. And I know it hurts to hear it, it hurts me to say it, but it's what it is.
And it's healthy. And again, if you want to see the most out of the human species, I think the only way to do that is to go through the biological,
Yeah.
natural, evolutionary process, whatever that process may be. Now, I know everybody's like, oh, evolution, and it went right out their heads. I don't want you to think of it that way. I want you to think of it as an individual growing to interact with and better adapt to their surroundings. That's the
Mhm.
best way that I could say to put it.
I think that's beautifully put it, and I think that wraps everything up nicely in a bow. Nature knows what it's doing, and you will. The more you go through the process, the more you will trust that process. So we're almost at an hour and a half, and we also
See.
have a bonus, not YouTube safe Rumble segment that we will be recording after this. So that will post hopefully sometime this afternoon, provided my various technology doesn't give me any lip. So fingers crossed, gang. But thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Georgia, for being with me, and yeah, leave us your thoughts in the comments. I don't think I think we need to allow ourselves to feel this one and to react fully to it, because holy cow, if this doesn't get us, I don't know what does. But
True story.
just as a reminder, where can everyone find you, Georgia?
I am on YouTube. I syndicate all my content onto Rumble, but as you said, we are actually experimenting with Rumble exclusive content. We really like Rumble, and we thought that the best way to honor them would be to speak freely on their platform. Duh. So, just in addition to what Brigantia said about the recording that is coming after this, it's going to dovetail with this topic. So,
Yeah.
you're not going to want to miss it. It is going to be uncensored, fully off the chain, and women are going to definitely want to pay attention to this one. So head over to Rumble. I'm on Rumble. I'm on YouTube. I actually just started a Truth Social, Twitter, and Facebook. So, oh, and Odyssey, but I'm not really over there. So if you're on the social medias, search for Georgia Liberty at the Wiccan Conservative, and get over to Gilded, because the Gilded
Yeah.
group is where we hang out the most.
Yeah, that is definitely the area that where it actually counts. Alrighty, thank you especially Lily for joining us, because you joined us in the comments as well. We appreciate you. Much
Thank you.
love,
Thank you.
and bye for now, gang.